on the screen. Take a minute and then go ahead.
Akka, I'm audible, na?
Yes.
दरवाजा बंद को ना तरफ.
Yeah, we are all on live, guys. Go ahead.
Hello, all. Good morning, everyone there in Dallas, and a very good evening to one and all here in India. I am Dr. Vijaya Dandanavar, President of APPI, Physiologist and Pharmacologist of India, Belagavi branch, currently working as Associate Professor in the Department of Physiology from Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, Belagavi. On behalf of APPI Belgavi branch, I bring greetings to our chief guest, our eminent panelists, academic administrators of JNMC, APPI officials, our MBBS students, and their wonderful parents, my colleagues, friends, and all the wonderful participants who have gathered here on this platform to witness this international webinar. As we are all aware that the lockdown has put everyone to a lot of stress and more so to the students, especially our medical students who are approaching their exams. It is imperative to focus on the mental well-being of the students as they are under ample amount of stress and finding it difficult to cope with it in the current pandemic situation. Hence, we, the organizing team of APPI, took this initiative to conduct this webinar in collaboration with iAsia News media anchor and coordinator, Mrs. Anu Benkatti from Dallas, Texas, targeting our MBBS students and their parents as well, so that they can benefit from the insight of our resource person to combat their stress, which would translate to effective student care and parent-student relationship. Hence, we chose this topic, which is very apt now, which is effective stress bursting techniques for MBBS students facing examinations during pandemic, a panel discussion. For today's webinar, we have with us our distinguished international and national panelists as our resource persons from Dallas, USA, as well as from Jain Medical College, Kahir University, Belgaum. First and foremost, I would like to welcome our chief guest of today's webinar, Dr. Bill Burrow, who is a Dean of Student Services, Director of Health and Counseling Center, Department of Clinical Psychology, George Fox University. I welcome you, sir. I heartily welcome our eminent panelists from Home University, Dr. Yasmin Nadaf, who is the head and coordinator, Department of Psychology, Kahir University, and Dr. Vishwas Yadav, who is assistant professor, Department of Psychiatry, JNMC, Belgavi. It's my privilege to extend a very warm welcome to our academic administrators of Jain Medical College and Kahir University, who have been very supportive in the conduct of this event. I extend a very warm welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vivek Sauji sir, our Registrar, Dr. Kotiwale sir, and our beloved Principal Madam, Dr. Mrs. N.S. Vanshetty Madam. Above all, it is my great privilege to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Mrs. Anu Benkatti, a person I think who needs no introduction. She's a renowned host and television anchor, currently working as Communication Director and Media Coordinator from iAsia News, Dallas, Texas. She's a person with rich academic history, a well-known host known for her live talks on Global Gupshup. She is globally well known as Akka in the world of Indian cinema and world conferences. She is very passionate and loves helping children with autism and other special needs. I extend a very warm welcome to our dynamic host, a moderator, and request her to kindly introduce our proficient panelists and take over the discussion. Over to you, Anu madam.
Well, hello everyone, and very good evening to you all back home in India, and a very good morning to here in US. And thank you so much for joining. I hope I'm audible to everyone, so you can all hear me. So, Well, it's a great pleasure to moderate this webinar today. It's a pleasure. I have been part of many nonprofit organizations here in US, and it's a privilege also, serving as an ambassador for the state of Texas here right now, currently bringing awareness to the Asian Indian community for a registration for the bone marrow donation. Well, this is my a small effort in giving back to the community during this dire time of pandemic, and so appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction, Dr. Vijay. It's been almost like 8+ months, I should say. The world has been struggling with the pandemic, and everyone's life has been taking a U-turn, so to speak, and everyone is trying their very best to cope with to way to just get over this difficult situation. So let's explore today and try to get some help from the experts that about to introduce to you all, and learn how to be free from this very stressful time, especially for medical students, from like anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, especially during exams, and how to stay positive, calm, and still be successful. So today I have a very special guests with me who will be sharing their wisdom and also their knowledge as well as their expertise with us for all the questions that we may have. So let me go with Dr. Dr. Yadwat, Vishwas Yadwat. So he's the youngest one in the group, actually. And then he completed his MD psychiatry in NIMANS and Bangalore, and worked as a postdoctoral candidate. And he has a research interest in geriatric psychology and women's health, neuropsychiatry, and especially, the LGBTQ mental health. So let me welcome Dr. Vishwas. Thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And our next guest is Dr. Yasmin for the panel. She's assistant professor, student counselor of psychology here, and also the head and coordinator, Department of Psychology, KL Academy of Higher Education, Belgium. So she's working here since 2014. A very dynamic person, I should say, because I had a great conversation, and she has a solution for everything, I should say. So she finished her doctorate in psychology in the Karnataka University, Dharwad, and she has published many very award-winning research papers and on yoga and meditation, and also conducts a lot of sessions to help students, and organized state level workshops as well, I should say, on a state level, with her expertise. And they also include personality development, study habits, stress and depression management, and communication skills in students and youth. So let me welcome Dr. Yasmin Nadab. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
And I should thank Dr. Varsha for the coordinating with us, with all of her effort, and working tirelessly for the last previous week to put everything together, and the information and communication. Thank you, Dr. Varsha, and really appreciate your help with the seminar. And then now I would like to invite our chief guest to the panel, Dr. Williams Burrow, and thank you so much for taking your time. It's folks, I have to tell you, this is 7:30 a.m. where he is, and he was so nice enough and very sweet enough to say that I will do it even though it is too early in the morning. I'm very grateful for taking this invitation. So Dr. Burrow is the Dean of Student Services, Director of Health and Counseling Center, and an assistant professor in the graduate department of a clinical psychology at the George Fox University. And as a practicing psychologist for almost 25 years, and he has performed individual psychiatry assessments and crisis evaluations, which is absolutely needed right now for thousands of clients. And he has taught, mentored, and supervised students in APA, the American Psychological Association, I should say, a pro doctoral psychology program for the past 20 years. So he has also co-authored several articles, presented numerous regional and also national conferences, and served as a president of various professional associations and a nonprofit organization. So most recently, I think, folks, this is absolutely necessary for that. And he, because we all have been going through this one in not just in United States and throughout the world. Most recently, he was in charge of preparing for a safe reopening of the university in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's my privilege and pleasure to invite Dr. Bill Burrow, and thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to start with, let's have a very short talk, and I would like to request Dr. Bill to give us a little bit of insight, and then the overview of what's going on, and before we start the whole entire session.
No, I'm not.
Great. So I am going to share my screen, and this may be rather small depending on what you're able to see, but hopefully, is that showing up?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Super. So I'm going to do a brief introduction just about sort of what are some of the stressors that you're dealing with as you're at university and medical school. Some of these things are common stressors to being at the university, and other things that are going on are really related to the COVID pandemic, which is changing things considerably. So I'll kind of go quickly through some of this information, and then we'll get back to the panel. So there's a number of medical school pressures that you all are well aware of. It tends to be a pretty competitive environment. And in a competitive environment, one of the things that you don't tend to do is admit that you are experiencing difficulty or any weaknesses you might have. So students oftentimes have a hard time admitting that they're struggling with their productivity, either because they're anxious or just because they kind of feel guilty, like I have to keep up. No one is able to, I can't let anybody know that I'm not having a hard time. Also, students sometimes fear that they're going to be left out of things if people know that they're having a difficult time. Then you have all of the reading and studying and exams that you have to do. You may have your own research or research with faculty members that you're doing that takes time. You're caring for patients, and you may be caring for other students that you're mentoring or supervising as they're going through their training. And then you have your outside demands as well, just in terms of family demands or job demands or other kinds of things that are taking a toll on your time. But then there are a number of COVID-specific stressors. So you may have been displaced from clinical rotations or even your campuses. At George Fox, we have most of our students on campus at what we call the undergraduate level, and some of our graduate programs, but many of our graduate programs pivoted to being online only. And that changes the experience for students. And a number of our clinical placements for our nursing students, our clinical psychology students, our physical therapy students, those were shut down in the pandemic. So then students were not able to get the hours that they needed, get the experience that they needed, and that created some serious challenges. Students may be frustrated with not being able to finish on time because they did not have the opportunities because of the pandemic. Worried about the job market in terms of what is available. I know a number of our nursing students have been looking to find jobs in other parts of the country because in the state of Oregon, where I live, most of our large medical facilities had closed down so many things because of the pandemic. There just weren't jobs for them locally.
Right.
There may be food insecurity or housing insecurity or concerns about not getting the clinical experiences they need. And that then has a negative impact on a student's confidence and preparedness. So globally, there have been research studies done looking at how medical students are doing. What they found is that they are having a higher rate of depression, suicidal ideation, burnout, substance abuse, mental health, stress, stigmatization around depression, and they're less likely to seek help. Roughly a third to 40% can be diagnosed or meet the criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. About a third meet the criteria for major depressive disorder. About a third are experiencing PTSD, and then 2/3 rated high in terms of low well-being on the World Health Organization Well-Being Index. So generally speaking, we see that graduate students are having a real difficult time in light of what's going on with the pandemic and just their school endeavors. Stress is one of those things that's an unavoidable part of life. there are happy times that are stressful and there are sad times that are stressful. And it's really just the mental and physical stress and strain that's your body experiences caused by urgency or pressure. But it's non-specific. It doesn't matter whether it's a happy experience or a difficult experience. Both have the same toll on your body. It tends to be kind of holistic. It's inevitable, but not necessarily bad. And the stressors, meaning those threats or things that are actually changing, can impact you internally or externally, or have a source that's internal or external.
Right.
You may be familiar with this from some of your psychological studies. This is Salier's general adaptation syndrome. And what you see is that when the stress originally occurs, there's a slight dip in people's resistance. But then they kind of get their feet underneath them, they're able to go along, and they get into the resistance phase. And they do pretty well. But then if that phase goes too long, they start to really fall off in their stress resistance, and this is the exhaustion phase. This is where a lot of people are in the pandemic right now. I've described this to people as being a marathon versus a sprint. The difficulty was that we all had to run at the pace of a sprint at the beginning of it to try to make all the adjustments. And folks are just getting worn out with it. So this is where we see people saying, I'm just going to go out and be with people and not wear my face coverings. This is where we see folks starting to, their immune system starts to drop. In the United States where we are, we're starting to head into our cold and flu season. So that is going to compound things as people are experiencing things that have symptoms that are very similar to COVID-19.
Right.
So this is a difficult time for folks. So in talking about how to defeat stress while you're at medical school, there's a number of things you can do. And the first one, and these are not going to seem like rocket science, but at a time when you're under a tremendous amount of stress, it's more important to be very, very careful with all of these things. So the first thing you have to do is really prioritize your health. You have to make sure you're eating right, that you're getting adequate sleep, which for graduate students or students in medical school, that's a very difficult thing to do because of the demands. You need to get some regular activity or spend some time outdoors if you can. If you get ill, you need to give yourself a break and slow down enough so that your body can recover, so that you can attend to the needs that you have when you're sick. And then avoid self-medication. So that's the drinking or using drugs that might be available to kind of get by, but it doesn't help you in the long run.
Right.
Socially, it's important to stay connected, to build community, and to make sure that you're not isolating from others. It's important to establish relationships with healthy people, to continue to connect even though you're physically distanced. And I know we're all getting tired of meeting online and doing, various video platforms that are available, but that's really important to continue to connect with folks. You may need to be more intentional than you were when you were actually able to go face to face, because you're not just seeing people in passing. So you have to actually make appointments and set up with others. So talk to people, peers, faculty, check in regularly, discuss how you're feeling with other people. It's okay to feel sad, frustrated, or exhausted. And then finally, you need to make sure that you're celebrating times. So if it's someone's birthday, figure out a way to celebrate that, even though you may not be able to be together with them at that point in time. We did a virtual commencement this last year, and I must say that the students found it to be pretty lacking compared to a face-to-face commencement, but we did feel it was important to commemorate the occasion.
Right.
Then mentally, you need to find meaning in your adversity and have a growth mindset. So we're all going through a difficult time. So what's important about that time? What can you learn? Remind yourself of why you're going to school. You're going to school so you can help others for a lifetime. But this is a relatively short-lived thing in the scope of a person's entire life. So the COVID restrictions and adjustments are temporary, but the driving factor for why you started grad school is going to stay with you forever. You need to maintain positive thoughts. You need to give yourself grace if you're not maintaining the same level of productivity that you're normally used to. So just acknowledge the challenges. It's okay to not be okay. You're not a bad person if you're struggling, and you're not a bad medical student. So don't buy into the thoughts that you might have that say, I'm just not cut out for doing this. So it's hard on everyone. So remember, you have to go through hard times in order to know how to go through hard times. Socially, you need to stay connected, build community, check in regularly. You need a healthy routine, and that routine may be different now if you're not actually going to school and going to class face to face. So you need to balance that work time and the recreation time, and don't overcommit to things. If you're already feeling maxed out, then you probably shouldn't take on something else new. Don't compare yourself to everyone else because everyone has different levels of support and different
Right.
levels of ability to kind of pursue through things like this. And then
Mhm.
schedule time to take care of yourself during the day.
Correct.
So, two specific strategies I'll leave you with. The first one is a way to feel like you have a little bit more control over your life. So, you make a list of about 10 to 20 things that are currently stressful for you. And as a graduate student, this should be no problem. You have lots of things that are stressful, all the big things and little things that nag, worry, upset, or drain on you. And then write down next to each thing the emotion that you're feeling in that situation. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling depressed or hopeless, powerless? Is it impacting your self esteem? Are you having thoughts that are kind of negative or feeling guilty or frustrated?
Right.
Then I want you to go down and write down an A for accept and a C for change. Accept the ones you cannot change, but then a C next to the ones that you might have some ability to impact and positively change. Then, of the ones you marked with a C, just pick one or two that you can actually change and ask yourself, what would be the first step to changing in those things? They've done studies and they found that people will put off the things that they least like to do or least want to do. Whereas the smart strategy is to do those things first, because then you open up all this mental space in your head for doing all the other things you need to do during the day, and you'll be much more relaxed. I have two things on my list that I don't like to do, that I need to do in the next 2 days, but I will be so relieved once I get them done. They're not bad things, they're just not things that I enjoy.
Right.
So I need to actually practice this myself, and I plan to do it today after this meeting and tomorrow. And then the second one is a pleasurable experience intervention. Here, you make a list of 10 to 20 things that you like to do. And again, little things or big things. And then select the top 5 things you like to do and prioritize them. And then ask yourself, are you doing these things, or are these things that are just put on the back burner?
Right.
As graduate students, we get very good at delayed gratification. We push a lot of things off in life to create all the space for the studying and the clinical work that we need to do. But it's important to keep enough of life going while you're doing school so that you still have the motivation to continue school. So then make a plan to start doing 1 or 2 of those things regularly. So these are some simple strategies to get started with managing the stress that you may be experiencing. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Anu, and we can talk with the panel.
Well, thank you so much for the just a brief intro. And yes, definitely we are going through so many of these issues, and then quickly that you covered everything. And then let's tackle one by one, because I know that there are so many important issues that students have been going through, and we received so many questions from them. And so I think I'll try to try to touch every possible the topic that we can cover during this session. So let me start with, so like a lot of students are going through, like you said, that especially the final year students and the third year students, they're going through with the exam stress a lot, especially in India, due to the change in the syllabus or the curriculum that is being completely put in a different way due to the COVID situation. So there is a question saying that what are our effective ways to complete the syllabus without getting stressed out? So if you could please say that, that would be a good question for you, Dr. Bill. So if you could just, give a little bit quick answer for that.
It's hard to know, exactly how to answer the question because I don't know what your syllabus is. But we experienced that last year in March of 2020. Our university sent everybody home and pivoted everything to online. And one of the most challenging things for students was when faculty changed up the syllabus. So I think the most important parts are make sure you understand exactly what it is you're supposed to do. And then you do have to kind of re-strategize how you're going to get all those things done and meet the requirements. And if you're not clear on what the things are that you need to do, check with other peers in the class or check with the faculty person to make sure that you're clear on what the expectations are.
So in the going for the next one is the most hard part during this pandemic is with everything going on. Some students are studying from home and online and everything. It's like hard to concentrate and without getting a distraction at the same time make the studies so productive. So how can we make this happen without getting stressed? So Dr. Yasmin, you want to take that question?
Yes, yes, of course, I would like to.
Uh-huh.
Uh, um, Because whether you are there in a hostel or be at home,
Mm-hmm.
distractions are there.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very important to choose the place of your study carefully.
Okay.
Ideally, it should be with the proper ventilation, proper light, and the place where you are not easily feeling sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
So at the same time, you need to be careful about the boundary management, what we say. So when we say boundary management, it is like managing your boundaries related to the time, related to the place, and related to your role. Uh, for example, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. This time is having a task of attending the online classes or for studying in, and for which the place boundary is the a room specifically made to attend the online classes or reading, and the role is of a student and the feelings attached to the discipline and to focus on. But if you breach the boundary management, because many times when I interact with the students and I ask the question, so when you are there at home, where usually you study? So the answer is near the dining area or in a living room. So obviously they are going to get distractions. So here, when you breach the boundary of the place or the time, so
Mm-hmm.
it's going to like make you not able to focus on the study. So selecting the or choosing the place and the study and the time for your study is very important, and this helps you to condition your mind. And as you go on making settling down for the study at the same time at this particular place, like
Mm-hmm.
it will be helping you to get involved in the studies automatically without putting more of efforts, and to be more productive related to your academics or the studies. It is always that you need to keep one thing in your mind to follow the 5 hours techniques. The 5 hours are read and revise or relearning, then recalling, reviewing, and rehearsing. Because rehearsals are very important. That's usually students they don't do it. Maybe weekly once they go for rehearsing writing the answers for the questions. So this helps you to understand where exactly they are getting stuck or going blank, and how much time they are taking to produce that answer, and what type of a handwriting they are producing within given the period of a time. So whether it is readable by the examiner or what. So these are some of the aspects that the students need to like take care of when they are whether at home or in the hostel, like choosing the place of the study and being at that place at that period of a time. It helps them to stay focused on the studies.
Well, thank you so much. And I think, Dr. Bill, do you have any comments on that? Quick one.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. It is more challenging because there are more distractions. I think one of the things that also is more difficult is when you're going to class with your peers, it's a
Mhm.
little easier to stay on track. But when you're having to do it all by yourself, it does take more work just sort of on your own because you're not doing it along with everybody else. So it is more challenging.
So this takes a lot of motivation for yourself, because especially with the social distancing and then not seeing anything. So as we all know, the hugs and like the face to face are the biggest stress relievers. Knowing that, and that itself is taken away from all of us during this COVID, and it must be very difficult to get motivated. So this question, let me ask Dr. Vishwas that I know that you have done recently all these studies, and then being a part of this the postdoctoral studies. So tell us, like, what is the best way to get yourself like motivated and stay focused, so that you can complete your work without procrastinating.
Yeah. So one thing is, we have to see we have come all this way,
Mhm.
and yeah, we have given this exam, and we entered in the medical field, and we have that capability, and we already done. And yeah, we have to see our accomplishments, whatever we have done, and after the seeing that accomplishments, excuse me, I'm just having the problem. Okay.
Mhm.
After seeing that accomplishment, we should give the motivation. It's some kind of a reward, and don't keep the stringent timetable. Okay, the small goals and the small measurable goals, you keep it with the frequent gap that lead to the accomplish what do you motivation, where you have go back and see whatever you have done and all. And based on that, you whatever the results are there, you passed out, and you whatever the marks you have got, just celebrate that moment. That is what the it makes the person motivated and all.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. Dr. Bill, this one is like in connection with that one. I know that in motivation is one thing, the time management, especially that, with all the students also are required to go and serve because, that they are, short in hand for all the services with the COVID. So, what is your suggestion for, like these graduating students, I should say that, like, how do they cope with this time management, still get motivated, and during that time, in case if they get infected? So what is your like just a little suggestion to stay calm and then go with the flow and then still get the work done?
Yes. So, um, one of the things that's been very difficult with this pandemic is for folks to manage their anxiety in it. Um, at least in the United States, the research has been very politicized, so it's hard for people to know what's true and what's not true.
Mm-hmm.
But as medical students, you've got a pretty good idea of what are the things that you can do to keep from catching this to the best of your ability. So the first thing is you know, make sure that you're doing what you can to try to avoid catching COVID, because it's going to take some time to recover from it, right? So you don't want to be slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is protect yourself so that you don't all of a sudden lose a couple of weeks while you're recovering from it and having to stay away from everybody. And then secondly, it's really, time management is critically important when you're in graduate school, and then particularly when you're having to do other things on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to schedule yourself, as was mentioned, to build in times to celebrate the smaller tasks that you get done, to break things into smaller units, and then work your way up to getting the larger things done. But building a schedule and then sticking to it with some semblance of flexibility, though. You have to realize that you're not always going to be able to do everything exactly as planned or exactly in the amount of time that you had planned to do.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out when is the time that you're going to be studying, when are you going to be working, when are you going to eat. Maybe you need to build into your schedule when you're going to take a shower or a bath, just because your time is so tight. And then if you're living at home and you've got family pressures as well, it's important to make sure that folks know what your schedule is so they're not constantly bothering you with other things, so that you can stay on track.
Thank you. Dr. Yasmin, this is another question for you, because I know that
Yeah.
you have been an expert in the stress relieving technique. That's yoga and meditation is your
Yes,
specialization.
yes,
So
yeah.
a lot of students are going through this one. So what is your quick solutions? Like, is there any easy way out, or something that they can do for a short period of time every day as their part of their schedule?
Yes, yes, of course. Because when we say coping, it is more of a set of the efforts that the people make to reduce the stress or its effects. So basically, we can cope up with the stress in two different ways. So one is a set of coping strategies to deal with the effects of the stress. When we say effects of the stress, like not able to, inability to concentrate or not able to focus on the studies or on the work, and also the changed sleep or the appetite patterns, or what do we say that a frustration or the anger outburst or the loneliness, for which actually we can make use of the techniques like relaxation techniques or simple breathing techniques. Then what we say progressive muscle techniques are there, and guided imaginary techniques are also available, and meditation and yoga techniques. And along with this, spending some 10 to 15 minutes daily for the physical exercises, or involving yourselves in the hobby related activities where you can nurture your skills or the talents. Because before the lockdown, what was the complaint from the students? That they were not able to give sufficient time to for themselves because of the tight
Mm-hmm.
schedules, and are not able to spend time with the family members. Here you're having really very good time, though this time is having its own problems, but at the same time it has good something good for us, that we can
Mm-hmm.
spend time for ourselves, nurturing our hobbies that are really helpful to keep yourself calm and reducing the effects of the stress. And at the same time, the second set of coping strategies that helps us to deal with the stressors, that helps to deal with the situation that provoke the stress response in us, like
Mm-hmm.
problem solving skills, like
Mm-hmm.
by finding out the solutions and taking an action so that the
Mm-hmm.
stressful situation can be avoided. And
Mm-hmm.
also the conflict resolving can be done, and change thoughts. When we say
Correct.
change thoughts, it's more of you need to identify what are all the thoughts that are producing stress in you, and
Right.
replacing this stress producing thoughts with the stress reducing thoughts. Like for example, if the
Mm-hmm.
student is feeling like my friends or the parents, they don't like me, I'm just a boring kind of a person, and they always complain that I'm an argumentative type of a person. So if you replace this stress producing thoughts with the stress reducing thoughts, like several times my friends and my parents, they appreciate my energy levels, they appreciate the innovative ideas, and they express that they love me, and they also encourage me to change the way I behave with the people. So when you
Okay.
change or replace these stress producing thoughts with the stress reducing thoughts, that are going to be helpful for the individuals, because what all the techniques I suggested, they are going to be helpful for coping with the stress, not only just temporarily but also in the long run.
Right.
And usually in webinars we suggest that okay, the relaxation techniques must be practiced, but the students are confused. What about
Right.
relaxation techniques? How many times a day we need to practice? What are all the side effects and what are all the benefits we get from these techniques? For that, we are not going to stop with this session. And beyond this session, if
Mm-hmm.
students are really interested, if they approach me, yes, of course, I am going to teach them a very brief and the effective techniques while walking, while sitting, and while going towards the examination hall. They can practice all these simple techniques that are very
Right.
helpful.
Right. Right, right. So, well, thank you. That was really helpful, and I believe you do have the session that's offered every day for students. So please, like I know that I saw some question from a student coming that is this if anybody who is actually suggesting that we should do a meditation. So where and when? So please do approach Dr. Yasmin in case if you have any issues, and then if you are interested doing the meditation. So she is the best solution for you at this point right now. So thank you so much for that. And Dr. Vikas, have you ever felt that I know that this we as women, like I'm not discriminating, but like I myself felt that when sometimes that during the stress, I think the food is a comfort for everyone. So have you ever felt that like this is like a binge eating, that it's just like, oh, okay, that's I'm going to get over my stress by eating. So so what is your take on that? Because I know you also have done some women mental health studies. So please take us there.
Yeah, the stress causes the a lot of people go carve for the
Mm-hmm.
carbohydrate, sugar craving, and they eat
Right.
to reduce the stress. Okay, they eat to reduce the stress, and the stress-induced eating is there. And yeah, if it is related to stress and stress-induced eating, and not related to any body image issues, and yeah, again you have to have some anti-craving methods like because the craving won't be there for a day or an hour or like that. The craving will be there hardly for 2 to 3 minutes or maximum 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to control those 5 minutes or 2 to 3 minutes. There are several other distraction methods like you can engage in any other work you want, and otherwise you have a cup of water, or you just go for a walk, or you engage in some what talk with your friends or something. You have to what control those 2 to 3 minutes. And if it is related to any body image issues, and even though they will be having that I'm fat, and that that can, even because binge eating disorder, yeah, they will be having that kind of body image issues. It has to be dealt with the what the cognitive behavior, whatever the quality thoughts are there, it has to be restructured cognitively. And yeah, these are the things, anti craving methods they can what
Follow. Yeah.
employ, and they should be very means firm on this,
Right.
and very firm on that they have to commit. It will be difficult. I know it is very difficult for few people, but after repeated what the
The practice then.
practicing and the perseverance, and it will help
Right.
eventually. Yeah.
So that 3 minutes time of a critical thing, that as long as we avoid with, then replace with something, then we will be able to get over that craving of that. So, well, that's a great tip. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Bill, this is going to be a very interesting question for you because I know that like a lot of students are going through this so-called cycle. Because for a moment that they're all happy, and then like all of a sudden, then their mood changes and they go over the stress, and then this stress level is not just because of the studies. They feel inferior complexity, and also their low self-esteem, and also like like it can be also the worry about like, oh, I'm going to eat so much because of that, and what I'm going to do until like that stage passes. They feel so uncomfortable until they get back. So is there any the clinical method that you would you have a recommendation for, that they have to kind of recognize that stage and then quickly recover themselves from that?
So there's in life there's an ebb and flow, and there are good times and there are bad times, and there are times that are easy and there are times that are more challenging. And when we're in the more difficult times, regardless of what the source is, whether it's internal or external, it's critically important that we're just much more thoughtful about what we're doing, how we're spending our time, who we're spending time with, that we're getting the essential things done, and that will help us to create a structure for ourselves so that when we're not doing as well and we're going into that sort of that bad phase in that cycle that you were describing, that we just kind of know what we're supposed to do, so we keep doing it. I was listening to an individual a number of years ago, and they said that one of the most important questions to ask yourself is, you don't have to figure everything out. You just ask, what's the next right thing to do? Right. So it's like, what's the next step? I don't have to know the next 50 steps. I just have to know the next step. And then once I take that one, then I take the next step. So when you're in those difficult times when you either want to eat everything that's in front of you, or you just don't want to do any work for the next month, you realize I can't afford to do that. So it's okay to have a little snack. One of my favorite research studies, they took two groups of people that were focused on weight loss, and they gave them the exact same number of calories per day, but one group got to eat dessert and the other group didn't. The group that got to eat dessert lost more weight over time and maintained that weight loss over a longer period of time. So it's not about not letting yourself enjoy anything in life. It's about moderation. So going, okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit of this, and then I'm gonna get myself back on track. I have a snack every night before I go to bed. It's probably a bad habit, but I also work out a lot of days. So
Thanks for sharing that. We all go through that one, and and I completely with you on that, because I myself have a sweet tooth, and then it's very difficult to hold that cravings on for the late night ice cream. So
yeah.
it's very difficult, but like you said, that yes, moderation and watching for the carb calories probably will help us to control all the problems that we may face in the that can be a consequence. So well, in certain situations, that I have to say that like because of this COVID, that we all are facing a sedentary lifestyle, because there is not much, and it's a scare out there to just go out. But even that like a little walk may or may not help us to give enough exercise. So more than anything, the emotional stress is much heavier than the physical stress, even though like physical stress can probably help with little endorphins here and there, but it's not going to be completely relieve all the stress. So Dr. Yasmin, let me quickly ask you this one. So certain times that students also reach to a stage where they are saying that I'm having a panic attack because of this one. So what is your like a suggestion that if they face that kind of a thing, that how do they get over it?
Yeah, panic attacks, when the individual is experiencing the panic attacks, he or she needs to channelize the thoughts. What are all
Mm-hmm.
the changes that are happening in their behavior? They need to keep a watch and a
Mm-hmm.
check, and they need to find out what are all the causes that are making to have this change in their behavior or experiencing the panic attacks. And once they are able to find out the causes, that they need to find out or to point out what is the most appropriate cause that is making them to have the panic attacks. When they are able to find out the cause, then now they need to work upon it. And
Mm-hmm.
The solution or the ways to deal with the panic attacks. The first one is try to have a balanced diet and sleep. And second one, not to hide, try to reach out.
Mhm.
Share this with your family or the friends or the mentors or the professional help always is there. And then also try to involve yourself in the activities that you feel really good. So it is more of reaching out to the people and finding out the causes and related to the solutions. I think Dr. Vishwas is the better person to focus on the solutions or how to deal with these panic attacks.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think students are feeling that they are being a little helped, so that's a great news. Dr. Bill, continuing with the same question that I know that the students also face during their sleep this panic attacks, and then and to get over that, they get on into a lot more social media approach. That there is so much availability like a Facebook, YouTube, and you name it, and then it is instead of helping, it's even get making it worse. So, how to solve this one?
Yeah, panic attacks are a type of an anxiety disorder, and anxiety disorders are typically driven by fear.
Mhm.
So part of it is kind of getting back to, so what are the things that you're fearful of? Are you
Mhm.
fearful of, doing well on your exams? Are you fearful about how other people are going to judge you or accept you
Mhm.
or like you? So
Right.
what are the fears that are driving things, and then actually starting to address those
Mhm.
and figure out, are those legitimate concerns, because we should be fearful of things that are actually scary,
Right.
and then, but are there things that we're kind of making it worse in our own head?
Mhm.
And then what can we do to sort of address those things?
Mhm.
And it can interrupt our sleep. Anxiety makes it very difficult for sleep. In the United States, the number one problem that has been skyrocketing amongst university students is anxiety.
Mhm.
Depression has pretty much been staying the same in terms of the rates of depression, but anxiety is just going up at a very rapid rate. So it's a very common problem. And
Mhm.
part of it is driven by not kind of knowing how to do life. There's a
Mhm.
lot of challenges, there's a lot of comparison. You mentioned social media. Social media is like watching the greatest hits of
Mhm.
everybody else's life. People don't tend to post all the difficult things they're experiencing. So it sets up an unfair comparison if we look at the stuff that we see on social media and go, oh gosh, they're having a great time, but I'm not having that good a time. But if I watch TV, there are commercials. It's like, I want to be there with those people. And what I have to remind myself is those people are actors, and somebody wrote a script and they did multiple takes with the cameras to get it to look that fun. That
Right.
doesn't really happen naturally anywhere, right?
Right.
So if I had writers for my life and I got to do it multiple times and I had other people that were there to make it exciting all the time, then I
Mhm.
would have that experience. So part of it is reality testing in our own minds and reminding ourselves, okay, what I'm seeing is not necessarily real.
Uh-huh.
Real is over here, and I need to hold myself to what is real, not just this other thing here. And then you have
Right.
greatest hits in your own life too, and
All
you can
right.
feel free to share them on social media if you want to. Um, but less screen time is probably better for you in that
Sure,
regard.
sir. So I think I'm going to extend that question to Dr. Vishwas also, because I'm very sure that you stay very active on social media as well, because it's very hard to avoid. So, how much is it too much for you? So, what's your recommendation on that?
Recommendation as yeah, just depending, it's a very subjectively what I'm saying. And yeah, this we have to know what how much you we have to assess how much the daily we are using this one, the
Social
social
media.
media, what is the
Mhm.
screen time. And based on that, we have to make some timetable like that. Like we it should be like a what negative reinforcement kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
whenever you have accomplished the things, whatever you have done, your the work, or so you have studied or something, then you
Mhm.
have to go for the social media for a time. It's for this
Mhm.
time, and today you are not able to do that thing, and yeah, it can be removed from you. You
Okay.
are not going to the social media, and some restriction for the timing, like you will be using for a 1 hour or 2 hour or like that. But sometimes social media is also very good what the stress buster.
Stress
And
buster.
yeah,
Mhm.
any comic sitcoms and all those things, because you have to laugh sometimes. And yeah, it will give some relief, and whenever you are very busy and all. And I don't think that straight away you don't have to use the social media. And also nowadays it's during the pandemic, no friends are here, and you are connecting the friends through the social media. But
Right.
you should know that when to how
Draw
much you have
yourself
to
a
use and
limit.
when to use. Yeah,
Right,
that
right.
you should know that.
Okay. Oh, yes, absolutely agree with you, because I know that, as long as it is not a, the negative effect that is going to interfere with your, the goal, then yes, it's definitely not a something that you want to do. So, well, thank you. So now let's come to the another very interesting topic of this stress event is, like sometimes you do have a very like the very near examination is coming like in 2 days, and then you have absolutely no clue what you have studied, or absolutely no clue how to even cover that one, but at the same time you just can't stop getting yourself overworked. And a lot of students that are wondering, some of them are very comfortable with online books, and some of them are like, I have to touch that book in order to get me the feeling of that one. So Dr. Yasmin, I think it's more of a, like, I know in United States that it has become a very common for all, even for a kindergartners to elementary to middle school, that online studies, but it has been a little bit of a new trend that it has been introduced since COVID for that. So what is your suggestion on that? Like, how do they get used to it? I know that a lot of books are not available and only online is option. So how do you what do you suggest for those students?
Yes, in this situation, there is a problem that the students are not having a hard copy of the books to study,
Mm-hmm.
which they really love to, and they are
Mm-hmm.
having e-books. But staying focused on the screen is very
Mm-hmm.
difficult for the students as they are complaining. So
Right.
staying focused on the screen is very difficult for them for a longer period of a time. So
Mm-hmm.
here, one thing can be done that is really very wasteful. So instead of going through all the subjects or all the topics, so the best way is they can create the groups of the close friends or the students who are interested in studies. They can make
Mm-hmm.
a very small group of for the
Mm-hmm.
group studies where they
Right.
can distribute the topics or the subjects among themselves. And one is explaining and the others are listening and clarifying their doubts. So this maybe after some time maybe appears to be done. But to make it more motivating, more interesting, and also learning oriented from the exam point of view, what can be done is they can go for taking a weekly test. Once or twice a week, they can take a test where they can frame the questions related to that topic, or they can take the questions from the previous question papers, or they can take a help of the subject teachers to get the question related to that topic. And once they are done with the questioning, means framing the questions, what can be done is maybe weekly they can fix the time, where at that time all the group members or the students in that group they can log in and they can take the test, and which is sort of a rehearsals for them, which is really helpful for them to know like where they are getting difficulty in producing the answer, or what is the
Mm-hmm.
coordination between their eyes, hand, and the brain, where they are
Right.
getting stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be helpful for them to know the status of their preparations and
Mm-hmm.
helping them to clear doubts with the group members. Here they
Mm-hmm.
can take the help of the teachers also. They can get a very good guidance from the teachers like what more stuff can be added to this question. So can you please evaluate this answer for us, ma'am, and guiding us, because the teachers are the best persons to guide the guidance related to the subject. So, and also it is sort of when you create a groups, it's more of a buddy system. You can share your experiences and you can provide more of an emotional support. If someone is lagging behind in the studies or getting panic related to, I may not be able to perform well or prepare well for the exams, it's more of providing the emotional support in the group. So this
Right.
way the initiation can be taken.
Well, that's, yes, absolutely true, and I think that is where like their real effort remains as well. So, Dr. Bill, the I have another very interesting question that a lot of students do face. That during this stress, anxiety, depression, and especially on the during the exam pressure that they are going through, these students will, like, their dependency sometimes will on like a pain relievers, whether it's NSAIDs or a prescription drugs, and like, so how do you avoid for them to get addicted? Because I know that once they find out that that their success might just be easy with just going with that. So what do you suggest that how can they stop themselves or just not to get attracted towards that?
Yeah, using drugs or medications for
Any stress
yeah,
relief or
right, yeah, for either enhancing your performance or for stress relief.
right. Yes.
One of the challenges is that at times it may work in the short run, but over the long haul, it tends to not work very well. So the best thing to do, obviously, is not to start. And it can be a temptation for some students, and particularly if they've tried it and found that it was somewhat helpful for them, then they're tempted to go back and do it again. The difficulty with painkillers, obviously, is that they become addictive over time, and then it's very difficult to kind of get away from that. And it also has other impacts on you physiologically. We've just had a major lawsuit settled against one of the big pharmaceutical companies that was manufacturing opiates in the United States.
Right.
That has been resolved now after several years of litigation. There are probably doing more incoming. So I think part of it is you do want to set an example for your patients. So thinking about who are you in terms of how you're working with your patients. And secondly, these are sort of shortcut devices to get around learning the skills that you need to be successful in life. So while they may kind of help in the moment a little bit for some folks, they're robbing you of the opportunity of learning what you need to learn in order to be able to do it without that medication.
Right.
So I would say resist the temptation. And if you have found yourself in a point where you're using it now and it's very hard to stop, I think it's important to go talk with someone about that and try to get some assistance in weaning yourself off of it and then going on in a way that's more sober and drug-free. So it can be a real challenge. And the same thing would apply to alcohol use as a way to kind of mitigate the stress that's going on. But it sort of stifles your growth and personal development and skill sets.
Thank you so much. So the next one is for Dr. Yasmin. I know that this also can happen because it's very unpredictable time that we never know. So like how do you deal with the stress that's caused by a death in the family? Because a lot of students have like their grandparents, they might be like unfortunate enough to have this COVID and then passed away, and then but nothing stops with that. So how do they cope with that and then still can come back and just do their duty?
Yeah. So death in the family, of course, it is for some people who are really closely attached to the person, is like a trauma for them, and
Right.
it needs some time to like what we say that bounce back to the normalcy. So here, what can be done is like sharing your feelings with the close ones, first thing, and second one, because when you love someone, you know that what were their wishes for you, what they wanted from you. So here, like, see, if you continue just like remembering them, you know that like what type of results you're having in your hands. So if you start thinking practically, the initiation can be taken. Like if you start thinking practically, you can make out of like in what way actually you can make their wishes come true. So that can happen when you focus on the studies or focus on your work. Maybe it was like definitely it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen all of a sudden. And in such cases, so the severity of the distress and how it is affecting the individual, whether it's affecting the individual's physiological functioning or the psychological aspects, or whether the individual is getting the trauma episodes, or how it is affecting the individual, for which actually I think it is requires some individual attention.
Well, thank you. So a lot of parents are also being part of this seminar today. So Dr. Bill, so like I'm going to ask all three of you. So what is their like a family support or a parent's the role in this one, like in what extent that they can support and help them?
Yeah, we ran into this at our university last spring when we sent all of our students home. And we found that some parents did a great job at this, and others were really kind of wondering, okay, how do we do this well? And others, frankly, just weren't all that helpful. So I think the first thing I'd encourage parents to do is have a conversation with your student. Ask them what things they might feel like they need from you or would like from you to help them be successful. The second thing is to realize that normally, if your student was at the university versus being at home, they would be committing a lot of time to their studies. So you need to do what you can to create space and privacy for your student to be able to do their studies in an uninterrupted way. And that can be challenging depending on how your household is set up, how many people are in the home, and those kinds of things. But it's really important that you kind of view the student, even though they're at home, it's like they're at work. They're doing their job of school, but they're doing it at home. So interruptions can be really, distracting for their studies. So giving them the space, finding out what they need from support. So I would encourage you to have a conversation. I actually did an email blast out to all of our students, instructing them how to talk to their parents about what they needed. It's like, okay, you need to coach your parents on how to help you do this. So it's like, okay, here's the things that you should talk to your parents about. So having those conversations and figuring out, okay, what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's helpful, what's not helpful. You're doing this, but it's really kind of getting in the way. So I appreciate the effort, but if you could not do that, that'd be great. And then I probably don't have time to, do this chore at home that I wouldn't normally be doing every 15 minutes because I've got to study.
Right. So, Dr. Yasmin, do you have a quick comment on that as well?
Yes,
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, parents love their kids. They love their words. But here, one thing is that even in some cases, they expect too much from their children. They need to listen to them first because many of the issues they may seem to be like not significant or a very silly kind of for the elderly people or for the parents, but for the students they are really very significant. Dr. Bill suggested that listen to your kids, listen to your words with patience and being non-judgmental. Don't be judgmental. Don't decide whether they're right or wrong. First, they need some person to listen to them, and also just try to find out where actually they are struggling with and what type of a help they want to have from their parents. That's going to
Right.
be very helpful. And you need to adopt the parental style where you need to guide them, you need to be a bit strict to them, and at the same time, you need to be friendly to them. Being a friend at this age is really required for the students. And at the same time, yes, of course, you need to have a check. So,
Right.
how they are spending the time that is required.
Right. Right. So a lot of parents do not. Thank you so much. And Dr. Vishwas, so tell me that a lot of students, especially when they are young, then that not everyone has a same level of patience, perseverance, like when it is especially goal oriented, and then especially during loneliness, they are definitely going to go through some anger issues. So how do you suggest that like that you have to share that one with your parents, and what kind of a parent support that you expect?
See, whenever the person is having anger issues,
Mm-hmm,
and the parent should not provoke the things or
mm-hmm,
criticize the things.
mm-hmm,
Why is it? Instead of that, being calm and ask, giving some time to rest for him, and later, whenever the person is calm, he can ask. They can actively listen to him and what exactly happening. What is the problem? Because the lot of youngsters will be having means other lot of other issues, and they might not be that comfortable to talk to parents also, but they should make some attempt to that show though that they are there for these their kids or their
mm-hmm,
children. And also also they should repeatedly making some comments and all. They should not entertain those things,
mm-hmm,
and give us some space for them. What
mm-hmm.
I exactly say. And if they can provide support, if it's in their hands, they can give it without any expectation. And one more thing is they have said, the expectations. A
Right.
lot of expectations come from the parents and also from the society also,
Right.
especially the person is a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
and this one they want, this is more of a prestige issue rather than a passion towards the medicine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some, I think that is not, that is a problem that happens with the student.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be a passion rather than a prestige.
Right, right.
uh,
So, well, thank you so much. I think that's definitely a different perspective that we all can see in a young, like the doctor physician that, recommending for all the upcoming students. So, Dr. Bill, one more, just, like we have a few more minutes. And so, like, just give us the, like, that as a doctor, like, how do you see it and what exactly the society expect them to be so responsible for this upcoming physician? And also during a time like this, that how do they actually prove themselves that they are doing this one, as a not just a passion and also as a responsibility.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things that one of my areas of responsibility is doing crisis evaluations at a couple of hospitals in
Mm-hmm.
our area. And when the pandemic hit, particularly at the beginning, when we didn't understand it all that much,
Mm-hmm.
it was a real challenge for us to get some of our graduate psychology students to
Mm-hmm.
be willing to sort of overcome their fear to go in and do the mental health evaluations
Right,
for these folks, because they were concerned about getting the illness.
right.
And I think that first and foremost, when you choose to be a physician or you choose to be a psychologist or some other medical professional,
Mm-hmm.
you're deciding to accept a very high level of responsibility to your patients.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, you have to be willing to set aside some of your needs in order to take care of those that are in need of care.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to do it safely. You do
Mm-hmm.
need to take care of yourself at the same time. But when you're working with the client and the patient, it's important for you to be 100% focused on what's
Mm-hmm.
going on with your patient.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally see the responsibility sides of things as being a pretty high priority, to be able to do the things and serve your patients and clients very, very well,
Right.
because they're coming to you as an expert, and as an expert, you're expected to be able to deliver what would be expected from an expert.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then when you're not on the job, that's the time that you take care of yourself. Or when you're not actually in the room with the patient, that's when you have the conversation with another person who's working
Right.
alongside you and say, hey, I'm having a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a hard time today. Can you help me out? Or can we talk for really quick for 3 minutes about something?
Mm-hmm.
So you may need to step aside for a minute, have a little conversation, get yourself back in the game, and then go back in and do what you need to do. Um, so it's okay to kind of take those brief moments out during the day if you need to with somebody else, but do it with a professional, not with a patient. And you're there for them; they're not there for you. And then also, outside of that setting, getting the support that you need. So this is why your relationships are so critical, why your
Right.
mentors are so critical. All those things are
True.
very, very important to keep you going through.
Right. Absolutely, and I agree with you. And then hopefully we all can just, cope with that and then get over this is really a dire time as soon as possible. So, Dr. Yasmin, like some of your closing remarks for all the students.
Yes, yes, this is the situation where we can see the students experiencing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of a stress. They
Mm-hmm.
are more of a confused on because of the uncertainty of the situation when the colleges are going to reopen, when the exams are going to commence, especially for the passing out students, final year
Mm-hmm.
students. Like
Mm-hmm.
what next if the exams are going to get delayed? It's
Right.
more of, especially for the medical education in particular, I can say that it is inherently more demanding one, stressful one. Both the UG and PG students, they
Mm-hmm.
encounter various stressful situations, like especially for the PGs. They need to attend the clinical work or the emergencies. They need to make the synopsis development. They need to go for the research. They need to write down the research, the dissertation. At the same time, now the UG students, they are attending the online classes where it's very difficult for them to stay focused, and they doubt themselves whether they are able to prepare well, perform well in the exams or not. And apart from the academic issues, they are having the adjustment related issues as well, because before the lockdown they wanted to like be there with their family, feeling
Mm-hmm.
that they would be like reading or learning more, or studies
Right.
will be happening much more in an effective way there at home. But now
Right.
they are saying that like a lot of misunderstandings between the parents or the family members and themselves, for which actually the understanding the perspective of the family members or the other person is really required over there.
Right,
And
right,
also
right.
creating a positive vibes in you or in your environment or the atmosphere, that is really required. And here I would like to give a small kind of a technique to create a
Mm-hmm.
positive vibes in you and in your
Right.
surrounding.
Mm-hmm.
So just open the albums or the photo galleries in your mobiles or in your tabs or in your
Mm-hmm.
uh, laptops, and look
Right,
into the
right.
photographs. It's not just looking at the photographs. When you look at the
Uh-huh.
photographs, try to feel or
Right.
experience the feelings associated with those lovely moments, like cousin's marriage or the college trip or the family outing. When you
Uh-huh.
experience the emotions attached to those moments,
Mm-hmm.
automatically you will be getting a genuine smile on your face. And when
Correct,
you do
correct.
that along with your families, it is more of a creating positive vibes in yourself,
Vibes.
in your
True,
surroundings.
true,
Yeah, it is
true.
helpful to have a bondage and an understanding and share the things. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to reach out to your
Right.
friends or mentors, or the professional help is really required.
Okay,
Though it is
okay.
a difficult, but it's not impossible,
Right.
because before the lockdown also we were
Mm-hmm.
going very much fine. But after the lockdown, we adjusted ourselves. Now, post lockdown, again, yes, of course, we are capable of adjusting ourselves and doing really
Ourselves.
very well. This is not the
True.
confidence we need to have. That's it.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much. That's a great advice. And then I'm very sure that a lot of students are going through similar situations that can definitely benefit from that. And Dr. Vishwas, what is your take on that one for the closing remarks?
Yeah. So one more thing is, yeah, the students are going enormous stress and they are preparing for exam,
Uh-huh.
and all these techniques have, they can adopt, and they can go to the
Uh-huh.
level, that they can tolerate the stress. When they are
Right.
going to have that, they can't tolerate it more, and they should say, they should learn to say no.
Mm-hmm.
It's not now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I should quit this thing. That is okay, uh, because your mental health is very much important than any other thing. And
Right.
if it is very stressful for you, and you say no, and then you take the professional help, and it can be the therapies or any other psychological methods. Or if it's too much and you are not able to involve in the therapy, in you are in such a low mood, and you are not able to do, and you're just feeling worthless and helpless, and medications also help, and you can take the professional help. And again, you can, whatever the exam will be there, you can give it in the coming year also.
Mm-hmm.
And but taking too much stress will decrease the productivity of uh, the student. And
Totally.
there might be chances that student might take a wrong decision. It's,
Right.
might like, it can be a suicidal attempt and all. It's
Mm-hmm.
very important to say no whenever needed.
Right.
uh, yeah, and yeah, this is the one what I wanted to share with you. And
Okay. Well, yes, actually, that you're absolutely right because dealing with the other lives and then saving in life, that also just comes that your health first and then you're taking care of your emotional health is absolutely necessary. And I agree with you. And this has been a great pleasure talking to you all. And it was, I hope, and a lot of students were wondering that okay, so do we do a lot of webinars? To what extent? That we it will be helpful. That I'm hoping that it's our a small effort by organizers that has some help to some extent answered few of the questions that all the students have been wondering. And like, and thank you so much for your guidance in regards of all these the students issues that they have been going through. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Bill for taking your time of the day to just share your wisdom and also expertise and contribute valuable time towards this session to help students. And it really means a lot to us, and definitely looking forward for the more in the future. And Dr. Yasmin, really grateful for all the tips and like and your inputs that just you gave us students to make their proper decisions for their issues. And Dr. Vishwas, it was really, really great talking to you with all of your, like you put yourself in their shoes and then gave us all the perspective of like what exactly to expect and how to solve such, the how to deal with such situations. So, like I'd like to extend my, the special thanks to Dr. Bill and, in supporting this session, and organizers, Dr. Vijay and Dr. Varsha, are putting it together, and especially Dr. Krishna Puttaparthi for, like guiding me, mentoring me, for giving us a short volunteer services, for giving this opportunity for me to introduce, small session for this one. So, at last but not the least, like I want to thank Vice Chancellor Dr. Vivek Savji, and also the Principal Madam Manchetti, Dr. Manchetti, and also Registrar Dr. Kotewale for giving this great opportunity. And hopefully in the future that we are going to conduct more of these to help students. Like whatever the situation is, we can all tackle together and, make this one as a very pleasant, positive experience. With all that, on behalf of, all of us, let's stay safe and be positive, and let's take this one with the great attitude. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. We're still live.